Hello, hello. Welcome to The Play That Changed My Life, podcast brought to you by OSM Studios and Harbinger Theatre. I'm Patrick White, co-founder of Harbinger Theatre, and we have another fantastic episode for you today. Two giants of Capital Region Theatre, Jen Van Iderstyne, who is appearing in Moon for the Misbegotten at Schenectady Civic Players. Hello, Jen.
Hi, Patrick. Good to see you again.
Good to see you. And D. Colin, who wrote and is starring in Psalm 91 with Creative Action Unlimited, and it's going up at the Arts Center of the Capital Region. Hello, D.
Hello.
So, how's everyone doing this fine morning?
Aside from memorizing lines?
Yes. Oh, thank you.
Yeah, can we cut this short today? I have studying to do.
Yes. So, no, this podcast is actually just a tool to procrastinate.
That's an
we are a marketing and procrastinating adventure here. Usually I say the podcast is just to get more theater into my life, but today it's to avoid Act 4. So we're both in production. We're both going up. I am also acting in Moon for the Misbegotten. For some curious reason, I felt compelled to take this part.
We thought this was such a good idea.
Yeah. You know, there are things that just reach out and call to you. D, in taking on Psalm 91, it's autobiographical. Were you thinking about it for a long time as far as this fits on the stage, this story? Eventually, I'm going to tell this story, or?
Yes. I had the idea of telling a story of my life as a preacher's kid, marinating it in my mind for some time. I didn't know that it would be a play. I've written individual poems over time, trying to capture the experience. I've made attempts at writing this story. And I think that I just kind of, in order to get the writing done, I knew I had to put some things in motion to not avoid writing it. Doing that helped me to structure it as a play. Because I knew if I was going to share this story, in a complete way, that I'd have to do a longer form. It wouldn't just be one individual poem, because I can't squeeze all of that into a poem.
Right.
And so when I approached Michael Kennedy, I was like, oh, well, when I approach Michael Kennedy, it's a play.
Right.
So, yeah.
So, and that's what you mean by the wheels, once you start reaching out to others, saying, I have this idea.
Yeah.
Then you're like down on the road. The journey begins when you reach out to someone else.
Right.
Yeah, the collaborative
I
form.
kind of had the idea out before I really started writing.
Yeah. Not unlike auditioning. or we sort of commit to something, before we know what's involved or how it's going to feel, when you're a week before opening.
You commit to something with really no idea exactly how you're going to get there, but now that you have people depending on you, you have no choice.
Yeah. Once the flyer was out, I was like, well, it's happening.
This is getting done. I don't know
looks
how.
good.
And you've got a killer cast.
Yeah. I have the perfect cast.
Excellent.
I couldn't ask for a more supportive group, especially since Psalm 91 is so vulnerable for me. To have people in the room whose work I respect, but also who I can call friends. And so that's been a really special experience for me to have the cast that I have. Yeah.
Yeah. Aaron Moore.
And
Angelique Powell.
and Jean-Remy Monet playing the voice of my father. He won't be on stage, but you will hear his voice.
That unmistakable
as
voice.
my dad. Yeah.
Excellent. Very exciting. We have a fabulous cast as well.
We do.
Heavy hitters. Michael O'Farrell is playing
My father. Phil
Josie
Hogan.
Hogan's father, Phil, and the next door neighbor, Marty O'Connor, is playing C.T. Stedman Harder, and and Joseph Plock is playing your brother, all with many credits throughout the Capital Region for many years.
Spanning decades, really.
Yeah, Marty was in the first show I did at SCP, King Lear,
Yeah.
20 years ago.
And it's come full
23.
circle.
Yeah. Yeah. The specific story that comes out of Psalm 91, what is it? What were you going through that you're expressing in this play?
Well, I'm a preacher's kid. My father's a pastor, so I grew up in the church, and I grew up with a belief system of protection, and also of what it looks like for me to grow up as a girl, to be a woman, and this play covers trauma that I've gone through, gender-based violence that I've experienced, and it also contextualizes that under the umbrella of me growing up as an evangelical Christian, and so it's textured, it's layered. It also the other layers of that is being a Haitian American, and so there's all these layers of my identity, but I am sharing some of the most traumatic parts of my life in this play.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, my.
That takes a lot of strength to be that honest and vulnerable.
Yeah, and when I tell people it's terrifying, I really mean that it's terrifying.
I bet.
But I also feel that it's necessary. It's also liberating. It feels like I've been trying to tell this story for a very long time, and I feel like I've reached a point where this is the most complete that I've told it, and that is a level of freedom that I haven't felt. And so that makes me feel like, I'm not only telling the story for myself, I'm telling the story for anyone who has gone through a similar experience and is too afraid to say what happened to them.
Yeah, I think it'll resonate with a lot of people, and it's very brave. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. There are, we've spoken in our rehearsal, because Moon for the Misbegotten has some autobiographical details of Eugene O'Neill's life, but there are many things within the play that we identify with personally. But in writing the play and then playing the part, are you? Do you have a mask? Is there any? Yeah.
No, it's me. It's me. It's and I, when I first started writing it, I was writing it as a one-person show. And then in the writing process, Michael asked if I would consider other voices. And so I was open to that. And because, it comes from the point of view of a preacher's kid, it made sense for me to think about my dad's voice. And so that came into the writing. And then because I'm raising questions of faith it made sense to have God as a voice in the play. So, Aaron Moore is playing Father Sky God. And then and I did a lot of research too, a lot of reading to contextualize my experience as growing up Christian and also as a survivor. And so my concept of God as Father Sky God had to evolve. And so I started thinking about, well, what does it sound like for God to be a woman, particularly for God to be a Black woman. And so there's a lot of, so that voice came in, and I played around with that. And so I'm telling a story of what happened to me in my life, but also I have these other voices that help me to contextualize that experience, and also to add some lightness to the play and some texture to the story, so that I can kind of like show my journey, my faith journey.
Yeah. So it is in, forgive me for characterizing it like this, but like a therapy session. It's very much that you're an artist, and that you created this, and that your imagination and bringing in these voices with you is a mask in some form, in you can tell this story by bringing in these other elements of creativity.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's definitely therapeutic. And I if anybody has seen me perform, they know that I'm good at vulnerability, but also in telling stories that are vulnerable, I'm also aware of caring for myself in the writing process. And that's important. It's not about re-traumatizing myself on stage. It's about being able to share something difficult, but also to get on the other side of that with some healing. So, yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, it reminds me of Harbinger, the theater company I co-founded, did a production of Maggie May in September, and I found that play about a woman who's just recently diagnosed with Alzheimer's, who is entering into dementia, and which my mother had, and the play very much spoke to my experience, and it was not. It was something I wanted to produce because it was a new way of looking at the disease and about the family's perspective. And we had a talk back, and there was a family there whose father has dementia, and the mother was speaking and saying, we brought him and he never speaks, and we wanted to get another perspective on this. And then the son spoke, and finally the man spoke up, and he goes, I'm not allowed to speak. And he went on to describe his life and what it was like, and to get his car keys taken away, and and how he's feeling now, and it was just like an amazing moment that this piece of art crossed over into the audience and gave this family the perspective that you're not alone, and that we're here for you, and we see you and you see us, and it was just an amazing experience, and kind of like when you go in, like, what do you hope audiences will take from this?
I mean, listening to that made me think a lot about how I learned to drive, which I did a couple of years ago. I don't know, I lose track of time now. And the idea of exploring past trauma and really reaching down to understand what happened to you and how you survived it and how it shaped you as a person. And really what it means to overcome and own the things that you've experienced and turn them into something that makes you stronger and more powerful. And, you know, I think that that's a really special kind of theater.
Thank you. Thank you. I want the audience to, if there are survivors, well, I can almost guarantee there will be. In the audience, I want them to walk away feeling seen. But I also want folks who haven't experienced that to walk away with a fire in their belly, because it happens too often. And so I mean, the job of art for me is to have people walk out different than how they came in. And in that sense, I hope that it's a catalyst for some folks to speak up about things that shouldn't happen to other people. So
Great.
Yeah.
The Harbinger is currently producing Into the Breeches, which is about a group of women who put on Shakespeare while the men are off fighting World War II. At home, they put on Henry V with an all-female cast, and the woman who's pushing to direct it is pushing her her benefactor, and describes the theater as having a linger effect, and that you make the impression and there is the event, but then there's what people carry with them. And not unlike why the podcast is called The Play That Changed My Life, is the linger that you have these experiences in the theater that are transformative, that can change your life, and that you will carry for the rest of your life. Like, you can recall specific moments in the theater, unlike, or similar to life-changing experiences that, happen in the real world. Yeah?
Yeah.
I guess we should address Eugene O'Neill, who wrote...
Yes, I have a letter for him.
Wherever he is. He wrote Moon for the Misbegotten, one of his last plays, and it is about his... not his family so much, his brother, who appears in O'Neill's Long Day's Journey into Night, and his brother James Tyrone, who I am playing, who was an actor, and his father was an actor, and took on one role, the Count of Monte Cristo, and made a fortune playing it, and played it again and again and again, like never did anything else.
Is that an option around here? I'm just asking for a friend.
And his son kind of like got into the company and was an actor, but not committed to it at all, and was a chronic alcoholic. And the play is in the last days or months of James Tyrone's life, when he's drinking himself to death, and he goes to a tenant farm on their property in Connecticut where the Hogans live. They're
Me and my father.
Josie and Phil Hogan.
Well, after all, my brothers have left because my father was kind of hard on the boys, forcing them to work hard. And he's not a very nice guy, but I'm tough, so I can take it. And I know how to handle him. So, yeah, you show up and you're kind of the love of my life, I guess you would say. It's about this one night that we spend together. These two lost, broken people looking for different things, but trying to save each other in the best way they can with the capacity that they have. Yeah. I think.
Yeah. And I kind of feel like the playwright is sending this out to his brother, whom he portrayed. I mean, it's not whether it's sympathetic or not, but in Long Day's Journey into Night, there was another portrait of James Tyrone, and this is, in some measure, I feel, the playwright is giving his brother this benediction, or this last peaceful goodbye, in matching him up with this character, where I'm sure the end of his life was very kind of hard, because to drink yourself to death at 43 takes some doing.
That's an effort.
And I'm sure it was horrific at that time in the 1920s. But he gives him this last date, and there's a romance, but there's also a communion of souls where they get together and
like a romantic tragedy, the opposite of the romantic comedy, the rom-com. This is the romantic tragedy, is what that
yes.
is.
And it's a pleasure.
Super fun, good times for everyone. Bring the kids.
Yeah, but it's like, why do people want to look at that? And it's because life isn't easy, and everyone knows that. And if you think that art is just to entertain, there's nothing that says that by playing tragic stories that's not entertaining, but
Titanic made a ton of money. I'm just saying.
But if you only talk about happiness, then you're not dealing with the whole of life. And there are many people who are going to feel alienated from that, because we need to see a whole picture, rather than just
Well, triumph isn't always something that's uplifting or victorious. Sometimes triumph is just surviving, getting through the worst night of your life, or accepting the end of a love or relationship, and moving forward. There are a lot of little ways that you celebrate overcoming something. And, it's not always a happy story. It's not always wrapped up in a bow and uplifting at the end, but we push on. Mm-hmm. Whatever we do, whatever we go through, whatever we're feeling, we keep going. And I think that is a triumph.
Yeah, I think it's about the journey.
Yeah.
Happiness is important, but if we have a full understanding of how we arrived at happiness, we can appreciate having it in the first place. Mm-hmm. And we can appreciate what it means for it to be in danger of being lost again. More because we know the journey, the story of the journey. It doesn't happen without that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's really uplifting. Like, you're going to walk? No.
Yeah, well, I love, we both responded to the material and signed up for it.
We sure did.
We both love it. I was telling one of my students, I have to go and learn lines, and she says, "Poor you, you have to go work on O'Neill, that great play." And I was like, "Oh yeah, you're right. I'm sorry."
We're very lucky. We're very fortunate. I very much wanted to do this role, people are like, "Oh, it's going to be really hard." I'm like, I've been doing theater for 30 years since I was 9 years old. Like, I got this. How hard can it be? It is the hardest thing I have ever done, like, bar none.
Yeah.
Like, nothing else even comes close to the challenges that this has brought me, from the technical standpoint of memorizing the volume of lines, the way that they're written, the nature of the lines. And then, like, we'll talk about the character and the acting, which is all very, very nuanced and layered and difficult and extremely hard to sort of wrap your head around. So all together, like, it just blows past everything else I've ever done in terms of difficulty. And I'm like, I wanted this. This was what I wanted. I asked for this. So
I feel like you're in my mind.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, and you have to just, like, again, you just tell yourself you can do this, and because you don't have a choice, right? Like, you're in this far, there is no way out. There are people counting on you. You will figure it out. And I think about how I'm gonna feel after it's over, and I've done it. And that's kind of what I'm living for right the moment.
Yeah, and then we say, what's next?
Oh my God, we do, because we're psycho.
After going through all of that.
Yep. I see an audition for something. I'm like, next spring, you say. I'm like, no, stop. Live in the now.
Yeah. Crazy, man. I was someone approached this morning in Facebook or message or whatever about putting together an evening's entertainment in response to the election this past week, and I was like, we actually were in rehearsals in 2016, the first time
We were.
he was elected.
And we were rehearsing the second time.
Crazy. But I kind of feel, I mean, it is completely different. We didn't even speak about it last night in rehearsal.
I can't.
Yeah.
I have compartmentalized to a certain degree at this point. Like, if I'm going to keep going and doing what I need to do, I cannot get lost in the depth of the disappointment and depression that is actually looming right beneath the surface.
Yeah.
I
I kind of feel like I can't engage with my disgust.
Right, my emotions about it, like, I can't engage with them right now because I have a job to do, which is awful in its own way, but it's kind of a survival technique at this point.
We had a preview performance on Wednesday night of Into the Breeches, and there were a great deal of Capital Region Theater participants at the preview, as there always is.
I was there. We ran lines before.
Yeah, but a very supportive community, and you go up to someone and say hello, and it was like we were at a wake or something, and but we were all there for a play, and it got a great response, and the play dealt with many issues. I mean, anything that is trying to be honest will deal with many issues that are relatable to the situation that we're in. But it kind of felt like an extraordinary, ordinary night. It's just, this is what we do. We go back. It's there for us. We keep creating. We, and it didn't, like, I don't get the vibe that this time there's going to be, a pink pussy hat march, or, like, there's not this, people say organize, and I'm like, we are organized.
I felt, and I still feel anger. The anger felt stronger to me last time. The fear feels very strong to me now. From the people who did not want this outcome I feel there's a great sense of fear about what's to come.
Well, we've seen this movie before.
Yeah.
It's a sequel, but the sequel is worse.
Yeah. Always is.
So, of course, there's fear. I don't think I've fully processed, and because there's a lot to process.
Yeah.
You know, as a Black woman, as a daughter of immigrants, as a survivor of gender-based violence, as an educator, there's a lot to process of what this even looks like for the next 4 years. So, yeah.
And the damage that gets done in the next 4 years and how it lasts. I mean, no, the processing. It's very, very overwhelming. I feel almost detached from reality in some sense, you know?
I kind of have this, I'm a big fan of scrolling, reading the New York Times, and I will gravitate towards the opinion pages up until Tuesday or Wednesday, because I'm almost, it's not that I don't want to process it, but I guess I want to process it for myself, and I'm not so interested in the whys and wherefores of the country. I'm really not. I don't want to know, why. I just I can't even look at it. I don't want to. There was, I think, Carrie Fisher quote, take your broken heart and turn it into art, which I heard, I think Meryl Streep quoted it at the last time he took office, but I kind of feel like in the Capital Region that we have art, we have venues, we have collaborators, we have participants, we have audiences, we have a structure, we have supporters. I feel badly, for communities that don't have that.
We do. We have a community here, and it's a big little community, because people. You almost always know somebody who's involved with something, the network of people that you know. But we're all a family in a sense. Like if you work in this area, like you're welcome. You're part of it, and if you need to be around your people, there's always a show to go to, and you'll find your people there, people who care about you and who are happy to have you. And that is a very fortunate thing that we have here that, you're right, I don't think you can find everywhere.
No, definitely not, because, we have a number of people who drive an hour to do shows with us. There's someone in Into the Breeches who's from North Adams.
Geez, I won't even drive to Saratoga anymore.
I mean, Tess McHugh has done a number of shows with us. She's from Williams. Tiffany is from Pittsfield. There are people that drive to get to what we have, and and we have so much of it, which is segue, I guess. We had a cast party to benefit the Capital Region Festival of Theater a couple of weeks ago. There are 100 theaters in the Capital Region, and we are preparing a festival to come up in June 12th through June 15th of 2025, and it's going to take place at a number of different venues. Right now, there are 7. But it's going to be 100 events, and we're going to culminate at UAlbany's Campus Center, hopefully. Well, definitely. But we're planning on 20 events there, from performances, classes, roundtables, lectures. And that's coming up in June to celebrate and promote this fantastic community that we have.
And games, will there be games? Please say there'll be games.
Games, sure. Do you want to play? Zip, zap, zop? Let's take a quick...
How about better games?
Better games. Okay, name your 3 favorite actors.
What? Oh, come
That's
on.
a game. What?
You're bad at games. Let's play Never Have I Ever. No, I'm just kidding.
Talk to my students. Yes. We'll all close our eyes and count to 20, one number at a time.
No. Oh, okay. All right.
No, it's not good for a podcast.
That's terrible viewing and listening.
Really? Theater games. Dee, have you taken acting classes?
I have not.
Excellent. No, that's
Nope.
I teach, but where did you go to school?
I got my bachelor's degree from Southern Connecticut State University. I grew up in Connecticut. And then I came up here for grad school and got a master's at UAlbany.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And did you do theater through school
Nope.
or no?
I auditioned for Grease in high school and I didn't get any parts. They just put me in the
What?
chorus.
Well,
I was like, can we reimagine, And nope. So I went in the chorus and I didn't do acting again until I met Jean-Remy Monet. And I was doing table readings at the library when Black Theater Troupe of Upstate New York was still Soul Rebel Performance Troupe.
Yeah, I was at those.
Very early stages of like the beginning of Soul Rebel, and so I in a lot of ways I'm on stage in theater because of Remy. So it started with Black Theater Troupe, and then I did work with Creative Action, with Callaloo Theater with Karen Christina Jones, and most recently with Troy Foundry, did a couple stage readings for their Half-Baked Festival. So I've branched, and I've done reenactments, historical reenactments of Sojourner Truth. But that came from being in a play called The Stone That Started the Ripple, which was written by Patricia Nugent out of Saratoga Springs.
Okay.
That was put on at Skidmore. And it was basically Sojourner Truth, Lucretia Mott, Susan B. Anthony, and Elizabeth Cady Stanton all come back from the dead. And they're like, oh, wow, so many things have changed. And, oh, y'all have a lot of work to do. That's like the whole premise of the play. We might have to bring that one back, too.
Let's talk about that.
Perennial.
Yeah, and so that was the premise of the play. And there was a grant program set so that schools and organizations could they could call for any one of those characters to come to their school or organization and do a historical reenactment. So I did that for a few months, and then people just kept asking me to come back as Sojourner. Then it turned into, can you come back? Do you do any other historical reenactment? So I've done Shirley Chisholm, and I've done Harriet Tubman in addition to Sojourner Truth. So that's my acting.
Wow.
That's the breadth of it.
That's awesome.
That
Yeah.
is very cool.
Yeah. When you started writing poems, now you mentioned earlier about learning poems and how it's difficult. But when you write a poem, is it meant to be spoken?
I think all poetry is meant to be spoken unless it's a visual poem. I actually don't even really use the word spoken word poet. I just call myself a poet, and I read my poems out loud. That's really the premise of that. But when I write, I'm imagining reading it on a mic. I'm also imagining it on the page. I don't really see like a full separation of those things. When I write a poem, the way that it looks on the page, the choices that I make on stanza breaks, on line breaks, those are just directions for a reader to read my poem the way I intend without me having to be present. So I'm expecting it to be either read out loud by me or by someone else. But that's, for me, poetry is meant to be heard.
Interesting. We were talking about Eugene O'Neill's stage directions, but the stanzas, the line breaks, are there ever cues within how this is to be read that are like emotional cues, or
In a poem?
yeah?
No, I don't think so. I mean, when I read poems and I don't have the poet there, it's up for my own interpretation. But that's like any text that you're reading. You know, you read a script and you're interpreting the lines that you're performing in the best way that you know how, or in a direction that you might reimagine it in a way that the writer wasn't thinking about, and that's okay. I think that's kind of what art does. It makes us think in a different way than how the writer imagined. Even me sitting in the room and listening to Michael Kennedy come up with certain things, because she's the director of the play that I wrote, is like, I wrote that. Oh, I didn't see, and that's I think that's the beauty of art, that there's gems in there that sometimes we don't see until we put our own emotions into them,
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, whenever you're reading anything, any script, or doing an audition, you're taking what's on the page and you're filtering it through, your own experience and your own interpretation of what those words mean, and the motivation and the emotions behind it. So, you're right. Once you write something down and you put it out there, you give it up to a certain extent to be interpreted and filtered by whoever's going to read it or perform it.
And performing your poetry, or writing poetry that was meant to be performed. When did you write your first poem?
6th grade.
I love that. I've had this question before.
6th grade. I was 11, and my teacher wanted to make sure we knew the difference between a simile and a metaphor. So we had to use both in a poem assignment. And so I wrote my poem. I got an A++. She put my poem up on the little bulletin board, and I had fun. I've been painting,
now you have to share
drawing
it with the class.
My whole life. Oh, I don't remember the poem.
Oh, no? You were so specific.
I do know what I compared. I compared sand dunes, white sand dunes, with craters on the moon. And yeah, so I know that those two images were in the poem, but I don't remember I do have the notebook that the poem is in, though, because my mom saves everything. Awesome. So there's that. But yeah, I'm a visual artist, and so I've been drawing since I could hold a crayon, and for me that was the first time that I was like, oh, I can see something, and now I can put language to what I see. It's kind of like painting with words. I think, was it, there is a famous artist that said something like that painting is making, I don't know. Anyway.
Painting with words. I got
just, you. I guess I can apply language to an image, and vice versa. Sometimes I write a poem, and I then paint an image that's in the poem. So all of that is kind of really fluid for me as a creative, as an artist that does different creative art forms. Yeah.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Great. And Jem, where did you go to school? Potsdam.
Yep. College. Yep. SUNY Potsdam.
Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And
No. I went to Mahonis in high school. Like, I was raised in this area, went to college, came back, and managed to move about, 5 minutes away from my parents.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I work at Albany Med, and people say, are you from around here? And I go, well, I was born here. In this building.
Literally here.
So did you do acting in high school?
I did. So I started when I was 9 in a production of George M. And, because in my school, the director, it was K through 12. You were all involved in the play. And to be honest, for the kids, it was mostly like at some point during the show, any show, there would just be an endless parade of children that went up and across the stage and back down and out. But that was it. We were in the play, and that was enough for us. I started then, and I did shows once a year through high school. And then when I got to college, very early on, I went to an audition. And because I was in a new place and I felt a little lost, and the only thing that felt familiar was theater. So I went to an audition and I got cast, and, I did shows there. And then, this is bleeding into the play that changed my life thing, because it happened again when I moved home after college was over. And that's a weird time in your life, right? When college is over and you're like, okay, I am done with school, and it's time to start real life. And what does that mean? Like, what does that even look like for me? So again, I did the one thing that made me feel connected to the rest of the world and gave me any sense of stability. And I did a show. And so I'm 44 now. And I have, since I was 9, I've done at least one show a year for my whole life, with the exception of like COVID and a little break between college or college and community before I was like, this is where I need to go.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I frequently say that theater is where I figure out life. It's how it's how I make sense of life.
It's the grounding force when everything else is in flux and I don't know what's going to happen. I know that I can do theater. Mm-hmm. I know that if I do that, I'm going to find people that I can connect with. I'm going to find a sense of myself and my identity and purpose in that. And sometimes that's all I know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Great. I don't know where we are in time.
Hold on. It's 24 degrees Celsius.
Oh.
11:56.
Thank you. Thank you. So let's get to the play that changed my life. Now that you've mentioned it.
I may have broached the subject. When we did the 5 questions interview for, I think it was The Revolutionists or whatever it was that I was doing, I mentioned George M. as the play that changed. It's the first one I ever did when I was 9, and I was like, I don't know what this is, but I got to do it. So this time I'm going to say it was The Crucible. And that is the first show that I did in community theater after college, when I was, 22 maybe. I played Abigail Williams, and it was at HVCC. And it's the first show that I did back. And it's the transition, it represents the transition that I made from theater in high school and college to theater in the community, which would then shape the next 20 plus years of my life. And I am who I am now because I did that show and started down that road. and just kept going and going. But that was where it started.
Great. And who produced that?
Oh man,
It's Hudson Valley.
Yeah, it was.
There was a group, Family Players. No,
It wasn't Family, but I don't think that they're active anymore.
No.
I believe it was Kathy O'Neill, maybe.
Yeah.
That was the director. Of
Yeah.
that.
What was her group? I thought she was Family Players.
It was. I mean,
Because Aaron did a Man Who Came to Dinner as a radio play, and I think it was with them. Anyway.
I don't remember the name of the group, but
Sorry. It's the quiz.
I remember the play. This is the show that changed my life, not the production company that changed my life. That's a different podcast.
Yeah. So, Crucible. Mm-hmm. Excellent.
Also very long.
Yeah. They liked them long.
Sure did.
Dee, do you have the play that changed your life?
Yeah, I was in college and I was taking an African American literature class. My major was English. I had a concentration in creative writing. And my professor, Brandon Hutchinson, introduced me to For Colored Girls Who've Considered Suicide When the Rainbow Is Enough by Nsizaki Shange. And I'd never read it before, and it was poetry, but it was theater. Shange coined it as a choreo poem, so it had movement, and I'd never seen anything like that before. But also, if you haven't read it, it deals with experiences that I've had, and so I felt very seen in that. And I remember we ended up writing our own pieces, and Professor Hutchinson had me perform pieces with her for an event stemming from that. And then years later, when I moved to this area, Karen Christina Jones put on a production of For Colored Girls at what was the African American Cultural Center in Albany, and I played Lady in Red. So, yeah, so that play it's a piece of literature I return to. I even have a line in Psalm 91 that echoes the title of the book. So, yeah, that's the play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Nice. I love that. It touches on so many bases with you, and that it has, stayed with you.
It lingers.
Yeah, it lingers. Yeah. Great. I was thinking of these transformative plays, like you picked a second play that changed your life, and I can almost go back and, mark my life by plays, like, oh, I was doing that play when that happened, that play when that happened.
That's the first thing I do if a year comes up. So I used to have this game. I'll tell you this. I like games. I used to have this game, and this only worked when gas was a little bit cheaper. But I would always put around $20 gas in. And I would stop it somewhere at 2005, 2007, whatever. And whatever the year was, I would take that moment to reflect on that year of my life. And almost always it was, what show was I doing in 2011? Because that's the first frame of reference I have for any time in my life. Is what show was I doing?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yes, I completely understand. And, having, whether it's events that are happening in the world, because we know where we were, during certain things, or transformative things that happen in our lives. To mark it by
And when you're getting gas, I mean, it doesn't work anymore because now gas is like $30 at least for, just filling up
What
half
was
a
I
tank,
doing in
but-
4,000?
Now I try to think of about the age, like in the 30s. I was like, what was I doing in my 30s? 35, 36?
There you go. Well, this has been a pleasure. Thank you both for coming in and avoiding your lines for an hour.
We
Back
got
at
lines
it.
Thank you
now.
for our break.
Crack that whip. Back at it. Speed through.
These are all the lines I called the other night.
One more time. Psalm 91 by D. Colin. Directed by Michael Kennedy, is going up November 15th, Friday night.
Yeah.
And you have Friday, Saturday shows?
Yes. Saturday, I have 2 shows. One at 4, one at 7:30.
Double day.
Yeah.
Excellent. And it's 15th, 16th, and then again?
The 22nd and the 23rd.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So 6 opportunities to catch Psalm 91 over at the Art Center of the Capital Region in Troy. Fantastic cast. I'm sure it's going to be an excellent production. I can't wait to see it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Break legs. And Moon for the Misbegotten.
Yep, we open a week from tonight.
We'll be thinking of you.
Yep.
Sending good energy across the river.
Yep.
Is Moon for the Misbegotten by Eugene O'Neill, directed by Evan Jones, is at Schenectady Civic Players, and it opens November 15th, runs through the 17th, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, then it comes back Wednesday through Sunday.
A total of 8 performances.
Yeah, so the 20th through the 24th.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yep.
Without pulling up my calendar, but yeah.
November
You would
24th.
think I know, but...
Yeah.
Just, for me, it's like I'm there for the foreseeable future, so all sense of time and date has lost
Right.
all meaning.
Yeah.
Yes.
We have lines to remember.
I know. I've had to eject a lot of basic information. I can't remember my address or license plate anymore, but I have lines. I have lines in there.
Excellent. Harbinger's production of Into the Breeches is currently running, and that runs through November 16th at Albany Barn next Thursday, Friday, Saturday at 7:30. And then Harbinger has a little break, although our 2025 season announcement should be coming up whenever we get the rights. Look forward to that. Yes. Fingers crossed. So thank you all very much for listening, tuning in. This has been The Play That Changed My Life, and we'll see you in the theater soon. Thank you.